Good evening, folks. Yes, we have a very, very special guest with us this evening. Banjo the dog. Banjo, do you want to say hi? No? Okay, well, we'll need to go live with Cam Bagrie then, if you don't want to say anything, Banjo. And yes, everybody, I understand that Banjo does need a bit of a trim and that he can't see properly because there's hair over his eyes, and I'm a terrible owner and I must change that. Cam Bagrie is tuning in and we're going to add him to the stream now. Cam Bagrie, you're live.
Hey mate, how are you? I've just got to get the right camera and mic on. How are you?
I'm bloody good. How are you?
Oh, would have liked the Otago rugby team to have gone. Sorry, the Highlanders rugby team to have gone a little bit better. But
ooh, yeah.
I
tell you what, that Crusaders rugby team. Oh, my mate's just on One News. I need to watch that. Graham Blake. I need to go back and watch that. Man, the Crusaders are just next level. Oh. Next level, man. Seriously. Yeah, and they're just going to get better.
Pretty methodical. They took the Highlanders apart, slowly a few weeks ago. They're just, across the field. They just do all the little things pretty bloody well. And then, that 60-minute mark, they just hit the turbocharge button as well.
Yeah. Now, if you're just tuning in, just a little bit of a tease, I will be speaking to Razor Robertson over the next, probably this week or next week. He's on our books here at Essential Talent. Great guy, by the way. And so he has promised me that he's going to come on for a bit of a chat. So we will do that. But in the meantime, we have our man, Cam Bagrie, best economist in New Zealand, joins us every Sunday. Give us a rundown on the property market, mate. Why don't we start there? Give us a bit of a recap. I mean, it's still,
Hot to trot, off to the races.
Yeah. Off to the races.
Like some sort of tulip mania we saw up in the Netherlands right back in about the 17th century. She certainly didn't slow down in the month of February. Prices nationally were up 5% in a month, 20% in a year. There's some regions showing 30% growth. Everybody's got their own sort of theory in regard to what's going on, supply, demand, shortage of housing. That's happening in some parts of New Zealand, but I still think the big driver here is economics 101. It's lower interest rates. And lower interest rates, crap term deposit rates. People are just getting out there. They need to put their money to work. So property prices go up and residential property yields are going down. It looks to me like there's a pretty strong speculative element to the market. Watch the space. I think we're going to see some pretty aggressive government action in the next sort of 2 to 3 months.
In what way?
Sorry?
In what way? What do you mean by that?
Well, if it was me, the first port of call that I'd do is I'd put a limit, a cap on the amount of interest-only borrowing that the investors can do. So if I have a look at what's going on there at the moment, about in excess of 40% of borrowing from the investor set is interest-only. So what goes on? You borrow interest-only, so you don't need to worry about too much cash flow to pay principal. So you can effectively accept a lower yield because the cash outlays are a little bit less. So if I have a look at the playing field here between investors, investors about in excess of 40% of borrowing is interest only. If I have a look at owner-occupier, owner-occupier, that number's closer to 10%.
Really?
So when you're owner-occupier, you basically, when you sign up for something, you're going to pay principal and you're going to pay interest, and that's the general expectation. If you want to level the playing field more towards the first-time buyers or the owner-occupier, then you put a bit of a cap on how much interest-only lending that the banks can do into that set, and you knock the market on the head pretty damn quickly.
Yeah, right. And you reckon do you think this Labor government will actually follow through on that?
But economically, I think there's a pretty strong case for it. But to me, we're in the realms of politics. And when it comes to politically, I don't think they can afford to stand aside and wait for the 2021 budget and sort of say they're going to get out there with some sort of magical supply side response. There is no magical supply side response in regard to what's going to conjure up a whole lot more houses immediately. It's going to be a long, drawn-out process. They've got to knock demand on the head. Probably the easiest way to do that is through one of the bank channels, and one of the easiest bank channels to tweak is not just loan-to-value ratio restrictions or a debt-to-income limit. Just go straight after the amount of interest-only borrowing. So, yeah, I've got residential property investment at the moment myself, and I'm fully expecting something to come down the pipeline because politically, the government of the day, they cannot afford to stand aside.
Yeah. Okay, so how about these low interest rates? How much longer have we got of that, do you think? Because it's been happening for we've had a long run of it, haven't we? So
yeah, well, it's been 30 years. Yeah, and okay, we've had the odd sort of period where interest rates have moved up, but generally speaking, the trend has been your friend, and the trend has been lower and lower lows. And it almost feels like now we're milking the last of that cow. Yeah, but I think we're probably underestimating here what could be the economic ramifications of this. Because we've been 30 years where basically capital values have just gone up because interest rates have gone down. Now, even if interest rates do not move up too far, if you remove that tailwind, you've got a fundamentally different economic environment, let alone if interest rates start to move up. Yeah, so I think where we're heading into for the next sort of, and this is a 10-year sort of story, is a step away from capital gain has been the easy money, the bank, so to speak. Yeah, now if interest rates are less of a tailwind and they become even a modest headwind, if you're going to be making money out of these investments, you've got to be adding value. You've got to be cash flowing the things. Yeah, really interesting to see in the past 2 months. If you look at what's called the risk-free rate, which is sort of personifies the opportunity to cost of what you could do with your money. Now think about like a term deposit. Like term deposit rates have started to move up. Are people going to be chasing them at the moment? The answer is no, because they're still ridiculously low. Yeah, but we're in an environment where interest rates have started to move up, but yields are still moving down. Now, that's when you're heading into the danger zone here, because what you want to be receiving adequate compensation for risk. You want to have a decent spread between what that yield is, residential property, commercial property, farmland, that sort of stuff, versus the risk-free rate or 10-year bond, deposit rate, something like that. Now, I think we're going to start to see a few interesting things in the next sort of 2 to 3 years. And it's not going to take much of a nudge up in interest rates to fundamentally change things. But at the moment, look, markets have still got that fair sale in their back where it's a one-way street, equities, residential property, it's across the board. Everybody's still out there chasing it. And they're still chasing it, even though we're seeing early signs that interest rates are coming off their lows.
Hey, what do you think about this stimulus package from Biden in the States? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that they've pumped into it. I suppose they had to.
1.9 trillion.
Yeah.
To put that in perspective, the United States is about a $21 trillion economy. So you're talking a fair wad of cash, which is going to get flooded into people's pockets, and the general expectation is that they're going to get out there and they're going to spend it. Yeah, so it's what's called using fiscal policy, which is just a fancy name for the government getting out there and spending a fair bit of loot to try to get the economy back on track. What was more interesting to me was not what he said in regard to this package, because you already sort of knew about this. But if you go back and have a look at the tapes, what he said, he was talking a lot about a fairer society. Everybody's got to do their part, pay a little bit more tax. I think what we're looking at here globally, including New Zealand, is that there's a general expectation is that, look, if you've been a bit of a winner, particularly through the property market, that sort of stuff, watch out.
Yeah.
Because I think policymakers are now going to think, look, you've done incredibly well. Other parts of society have not. So who are we going to go after? We've been in an environment also for a long time where company tax rates have come down.
He didn't get that minimum wage up to.
Go up.
He didn't get that minimum wage up to $15, did he? In this. He'll have another
No,
crack
but
at that.
she's a pretty big move upwards
I
anyway.
think it's about $7.50 or something at the moment. Is the minimum wage?
Yeah, well, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but for a lot of these businesses been out there surviving on this sort of stuff in regard to what their model.
Exactly.
It's tough. Yeah, this is we want this stuff. We want to put more money into people's pockets. Yeah. So if I have a look at respective shares of GDP, look, basically GDP is a fancy name for the economy. Yeah. So you got the winners of the economy. We divide the pie between the so-called workers versus the owners of the businesses, capital, that sort of stuff. Yeah. What we're seeing basically for about 30 years is that Labor's share of the economic pie has been declining. And it's been across the board around the globe. And that's because we've outsourced stuff into China. Yeah, technology has just eliminated a whole lot of jobs. Yeah, but I think what we're going through at the moment is a real profound change socially, where people say, look, enough's enough. We've just got to get more money back into people's pockets.
Yeah.
Now, there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is someone pays.
Yeah, well,
and that involves costs on business. And you still want businesses to be employing people at the same time you're slogging them with costs. And that balancing act is going to be really critical going forward. There's not enough conversation out there at the moment between the economic and the social side of the ledger.
Yeah, I agree.
People actually realise, look, some of the economic stuff just got out of whack. And when the economic stuff gets out of whack, society pushes back, which is what we're seeing at the moment globally.
Dead right. Very well said. Tell me about this. I haven't actually had a good look at it, but you want to talk about this article and stuff about a generation failing in maths.
Oh, I've got a real.
He's gonna wind him up on this. Come on then.
About education and the next generation, and the next generation being the owner of businesses, architects of the New Zealand economy. And this article out today about this generation of kids is basically failing at maths. Yeah. Performance is actually getting worse. And it's almost like, I know there's a whole lot of issues out there across New Zealand at the moment, but if I have a look at what is the most important thing we need to be aware of in regard to setting New Zealand up for the next sort of 30 years.
Educating our kids.
Important, housing, that sort of stuff, yes. But we've got to get the education sector right.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing in regard to the various benchmarks which they use globally is that New Zealand is deteriorating. We're heading backwards. And I sit there and think about it's not bloody rocket science in regard to what's going on here. One of the most important variables which we've noticed, and we've known about it for a while, is that kids are declining, attending school less. Way back in 2015, there's 70% of kids were regularly attending school. Now, regular attendance is there 90% of the time. But we're now down to 57.7% of kids are now regularly attending school. And this is 2019. This is pre-COVID. So you want to get a few answers in regard to why we got declining performance in regard to maths, science, these sort of things. Well, it might just have a little bit to do with the fact that the kids are not turning up at school.
Exactly.
Attendance is 45% of kids are regularly attending school. Where we're seeing the biggest decline is in primary schools. It's not the year 12 and 13 kids that are wagging. It's in the nuts and bolts sort of area. But I sit there and I look at this sort of stuff and I shake my head in regard to, there's all these articles out there every week on the property market, that sort of stuff. And there's good reasons for that. But why on earth do we not have the same call to arms in regard to education? Because that's New Zealand's future.
Couldn't agree with you more. Could the manufacturing sector turn the corner?
It's one of the things I'm starting to think about at the moment, because manufacturing, if you strip out food, has sort of been in trend decline in New Zealand for about 30 years. It's been shrinking as a share of GDP. It's been getting smaller. But all these stories we're hearing at the moment in regard to struggling to get goods, port-related issues, supply chain is now a really big risk for businesses in regard to getting stuff, sourcing items, meeting your customer demands. I think we're going to start to see a little bit of a modest push, emphasis on modest, towards producing local over the next sort of 5 to 10 years, because security of supply, having the stuff, I think is going to be pretty critical sort of going forward. So I think manufacturing is set for a modest revival, and no one's talking about this sort of stuff. But if you're an importer at the moment and you can't source your items globally, you now need a local supply chain. Now, a lot of the stuff we can't produce locally. But I think there's going to be some stuff we can. Are we going to be as cost efficient? The answer is probably no, but we're probably going to be prepared to pay for that because we just want to make sure we can get the damn stuff. So your manufacturing, it would have to be automated, IT directed, robotics, all this sort of stuff. But big surprise in the next 10 years could be what comes out of the manufacturing sector.
America's cut production?
Oh, I'm sitting there from race to race. I walked into this and I thought, it was going to be pretty comfortable. But boy, those Italians are sailing pretty damn well.
Yeah.
What you say? Making it a great event. Just a shame we don't have the international tourists in here to enjoy it and spend the loot.
True. Thank you, my friend, for joining us again. You are the man.
Cheers, Chief. Enjoy
have a fantastic and profitable week.
Take care. All
right, brother. Thank you. That's my very good friend Cam Bagrie. Absolute winner. Couple of things. A really good show to watch. I think it's on Netflix. Movie. Oh, there goes Banjo. See Banjo in the background, sniffing around the door there, wanting to speak to Ben. Really good movie on Netflix is Becoming Warren Buffett. Now, some of you may not have heard of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is the richest guy in the world, so you sort of may jump to the conclusion that he's just a rich guy, and who wants to bloody watch that? Fantastic movie. You just at the end of it, you just go, the guy is legend. It's called Becoming Warren Buffett. He's very frugal with his money, and he's it's more about the numbers that gets him excited. He's not a materialistic person. He's just so tight. There's a bit in the movie where his wife, who is also very, very frugal, they decide how much he can spend on his breakfast each day. Well, he's worth like $65 billion, but it's like, it's been a low day on the shares today, so I can have the $3.15 optional. It's really good, and at the end of it, you go, Warren Buffett, you're a good guy. And he's giving he's worked out that he will have spent 1% of the wealth that he has generated in his life. The other 99%, he's given away. He's good mates with Bill Gates, so he's basically throwing all the money into that foundation. But I can't recommend it enough. Becoming Warren Buffett. My youngest son, Jackson, is really into investing and learning about businesses and so forth. And I said to him, you gotta watch this movie, man. You'll love it. And he goes, yeah, I've already watched it. Okay, great. Father of the year, finger on the pulse. All right, have a great week, guys. Have a great week. It's we're starting to make inroads, aren't we, with this whole COVID thing? Probably a couple of years before things are totally back to normal, but we've got the vaccines coming in, and we're going to be okay. Keep thinking outside the square and just go for it. I hope you have a really, really cool week, and I'll talk to you soon. Oh, by the way, don't forget, a couple of big interviews coming out. We've got not Richie McCaw, although we might be able to get Richie McCaw. We've got Nigel Lasser, excuse me, and Razor Robertson. So they'll be coming soon. All right. Farewell.